Welcome, everyone. This is such an exciting opportunity to be here again, now for my third year. I am Sade Dennis, Director of Market Transformation and Development for the U.S. Green Building Council. I like to always say it like this. Those folks who are familiar with a lot of what we do may be familiar with our LEED rating system. It's pretty exciting, and it keeps what we call the triple bottom line front and center, which is people, planet, and profit. In this case today, we're going to be looking at healthy buildings, homes as well, and I'm just excited to see what we can create together. So LEED v5, which is the new blueprint for healthy, smart, high-performance buildings. This is LEED v5. For most of us, we may know, but for those who don't, LEED is the world's most widely used green building rating system. For 25 years, LEED certification has provided a framework for healthy, highly efficient, and cost-saving green buildings, which offer environmental, social, and governance benefits. LEED certification is a globally recognized symbol of sustainability achievement backed by an entire industry of committed organizations and individuals, paving the way for market transformation. I'd like to say that if you throw a rock somewhere, 9 times out of 10, it will be in a LEED building environment. For instance, in Washington, D.C., it's part of the code, and in many other cities and states, it is an international green rating system. So if you've ever been in a really nice building, I like to say, if you look up on the wall, more than likely you will see the LEED green plaque. So it's a wise investment in your building. On average, 21% higher market sales price over non-LEED buildings, which is really good to know. It reduces water and energy by more than 20%, and an average 11% higher rent rates, that is, so for your owners and your leasing professionals is always, front of mind to ensure that your building can be occupied. It's also helpful to know that LEED buildings are helpful for lower utility costs, improved tenant and employee satisfaction, quality for tax incentives, and sustainable financing. I always like to remind people that when you think about green means obviously the things that we know for green to mean, but also green as in, right, the money, the dollars, quality for tax incentives and financing, stronger financing options, and solid data on asset performance. So when you think about buildings need to be something that we think about 60, 80 years on out, and we can all agree that, right now, the external environment is, it's a bit volatile, but buildings, we are staying the course, and that's what LEED buildings do, keeping human and people at the center. So that's really important, and we have the data to back it. So why now? The imperatives facing our world have not stopped, right? We know we have climate events that are very, very long lasting impacts, negative impacts, for instance, with climate change, with buildings perhaps who have not been maintained. When we think about buildings, we know we're not going to build our way out of this mess, right? So operations and maintenance is a major, major important thing that LEED emphasizes. LEED v5 was born out of a year-long listening tour with our stakeholders. You guys communicated a need for flexibility, solutions, decarbonization throughout the building life cycle. We talked about that, right? Buildings 60, 80 years on up. Strategies for resilience, and the support of a robust platform to manage projects and performance data. Data. We cannot emphasize that enough. And so not only quantitative, but also qualitative when we think about occupancy, comfort, and satisfaction. So we heard you, and LEED v5 addresses that. So later on in the presentation, we'll hear more about the 3 different areas of LEED v5. Again, why LEED v5? It is a comprehensive framework embracing market demands for greater accountability. LEED v5 champions solutions to align in the built environment with critical imperatives, including, here we are, the 3 areas: decarbonization, quality of life, and ecological conservation and restoration. I get pretty excited about this, especially, guys, on the quality of life. LEED v5 drives real-world impact and positive change. represents a significant advancement in green building standards to address critical sustainability challenges. What's pretty interesting about this version of LEED is that in years past, you know, I would say that we didn't have necessarily a cadence. Now, with V5 and beyond, you're looking at the expectation that every 5 years we'll have an advanced rating system. So right now, 2026, about 5 years, you can expect another version of LEED. Pretty exciting. Now, the latest one raises the bar for design, construction, and operations within the built environment, addressing and reinforcing resilience, that word resilience, health, and community. So now, what is in the new version of LEED V5? So building on our legacy, while so many of LEED's historical core tenets and strategies are found in V5, there are several new systems designed to support projects in achieving their goals. Here are some of them. So one, fundamentally restructures around carbon, integrates resilience strategies throughout the credits, establishes platinum requirements to ensure that projects earning LEED's highest rating are designed for or operate at low carbon. It emphasizes key metrics to give projects the data they need for impact reporting. And here we go. It adopts a 5-year development cycle. So this is helpful for project teams to be able to anticipate. We know that it's not only project teams, but also policy, financing. And so now we can begin to really plan out what that looks like. So with their long-term goals, that is. So it further aligns with the requirements and metrics between new construction and operations to capture a building's life cycle. And I cannot emphasize enough, we hear about, LEED buildings, for instance, that may have been certified in years past. And then you move forward and, once these buildings are delivered to the occupants, right, to the facility managers, it's important that they be maintained for operations to ensure that all of the, beyond the shiny, glittery things, that the building is still high performing. So that operations and maintenance key is very key. Also, it introduces a new project priorities credit category to tailor the scorecard towards each project's specific goals. Exciting things. Now, this is our most impactful version yet. Again, our 3 areas: decarbonization, which drives the industry towards a decarbonized built environment across all major sources of emissions: operational, embodied, and transportation. Quality of life, one of my favorites here, which uses human-centric strategies to address crucial aspects of sustainable building, including human health and well-being, resilience, and community well-being. This is also really exciting as well, the ecological conservation and restoration. Now, this here emphasizes strategies and actions that can be implemented at the individual asset level that limit environmental degradation and seek to rehabilitate and restore ecosystems. We think about buildings and we think about them in the context of the natural environment. We know that in nature, for instance, systems are closed. And so when you think about, let's say, a farm or animals, right, and manure, right, that's the most friendliest thing to think about. But it's a closed system where every part of that cycle is considered. But with buildings, oftentimes, and in the past, you have a building and it's built. And then you have waste and you have, deconstruction or construction. And what it does is it can be harmful towards the earth and the people. We know that. But with LEED V5 and others, it seeks to make sure that there is very low harm and perhaps even can help the site to where it's built. And so this part does, it emphasizes those strategies and rewards project teams and buildings for it being more of a closed system. There is projects, for instance, the T-Row building in Baltimore, that when it was developed, it actually improved the grounds and the land that it was built on. There was a chrome manufacturing plant, and during the process, it did a lot of mitigation, and now that space now is usable, and it's a thriving area. It's mixed use. And so obviously, taking into consideration the ecological conservation and restoration is really key. Buildings, we know, have historically been a problem, but now buildings can be a solution, and that's what LEED v5 seeks to do. So now, with the LEED v5 rating systems, here are the three types. We have BD and C, which is building, design, and construction. ID and C, interior design and construction, and O&M. O&M, so important, operations, which is building operations and maintenance. Like I said, we're not going to build our way out of this. Operations, we know there's lots of existing building stock. And here we go to the creme de la creme, right? LEED certification for residential buildings and projects. LEED helps create living spaces where people can thrive. So LEED for residential design and construction. A home, as we know, is more than just shelter, right? It occupies our most loved ones, our family, our friends, and loved ones. Homes are the most important places in our lives. We can all agree on that. And so LEED certified green homes use less energy and fewer resources and are healthier for you and your family. LEED certified homes are designed to provide clean indoor air and ample natural light, and to use safe building materials to ensure our comfort and good health. There's a term and a thing, it's a real thing, sick buildings, and it's a real thing. And when you think about what we do in our homes, right? We do most of our precious activities in our homes. And so we understand that. So LEED homes help us to reduce our energy and water consumption, thereby lowering our utility costs every single month. Once again, our triple bottom line, our profit, right? And that even our own profits and pockets. So among other financial benefits, using the strategies outlined in LEED, homeowners are having a net positive impact on their communities. Super exciting. So here's an impact for renters, owners, and the environment. LEED homes are also designed, constructed, and operated to be resilient in adverse conditions, developed with proactive design planning for potential impacts of catastrophic weather. We see that every day in the news. And it is frightening, to be honest with you. There's a term that I became familiar with, in this work, and it's called passive survivability. How long can a person be in a space, be in a home, be in a property until they're either, become sick, or how long can they be in that space? And so when you think about our loved ones and ourselves, our families, that brings home to mind having a space in a building that is safe, it's high performing, and that we can be able to survive, God forbid, in a climate event. So here are three things that I want to point out to you guys. Health, right? LEED homes are designed to maximize indoor fresh air. We know that in environments where there's high asthma and other environmental factors, air is everything, and I know those of you all who will be, at this conference, who are watching this now, can all agree that, a lot of issues are the result of unhealthy indoor air quality. And then the LEED scorecard really rewards and prioritizes that environmental quality. And here we go again, with savings. LEED homes use less energy and water, which means, right, lower utility bills. And of course, value. With proper planning, LEED homes can be built for the same cost, right? The same cost as non-green homes. LEED homes can qualify for discounted homeowners insurance, tax breaks, and other incentives. And in many markets, certified green homes are now selling quicker and for more money than comparable non-green homes. I mean, think about it. It's kind of a win-win. I always like to emphasize that green. Green is green, of course, but green really does affect our pockets, our profit and our pockets. So for better homes, accountability makes a difference through a carefully managed, independent third-party verification. LEED certification affirms the integrity of green building commitments by ensuring project teams are delivering on design plans and goals. Third-party validation helps guarantee that each project saves energy, water, resources, reducing overall environmental impact. So guess what? No cutting corners. And here are some examples of some of the residential type of projects that LEED certifies: multifamily, core and shell, and single family. We like to say that there's a LEED for every project. Pretty exciting stuff here. Once again, our three areas are impact areas of LEED: ecological conservation, restoration, quality of life, and decarbonization. And so just to kind of drill down on what those three areas are. So for decarbonization, it focuses on operational carbon, embodied carbon, and transit-related carbon. For quality of life, it focuses on creating a more adaptable and resilient project, emphasizing and enhancing elements of the rating system to support equity and inclusivity. This is exciting. In years past, of course, environmental justice and the human centric approach has always been important, but this LEED v5 version really does reward project teams to ensure that all along the supply chain, that it's equitable, that it makes sense, right? It's good business because it treats people well. And then, of course, increasing the likelihood that more people will enjoy and care about the building and the space. We spend about 90% of our life in buildings. Buildings, like I said, can be an issue, can be a problem, but also we want to ensure that buildings be part of the solution, not only with the environment, but also, again, the people. And we know that, with things like solar, for instance, is that, we know that there's been issues, harmful issues that deal with solar as one example. But there are many others that we could point to where equity and was not centered along the supply chain. And what LEED v5 does, it does take a focus on that. And again, looking at ecological conservation and restoration, it focuses on conserving natural habitats, restoring them, as well as efficiently using resources that impact natural habitats. So these are the three areas that we're pretty excited about rewarding those projects for in LEED v5. And we've heard so much wonderful feedback. We have had projects that have already been online for v5. Some have been operations and maintenance, and we see that there's lots of registration for new construction. And it's pretty exciting when, you step into a LEED building, you feel the difference. I can recall there is something that you all may be familiar with, Kaiser Permanente, for instance. You go inside, we were in a Kaiser Permanente LEED building just yesterday, and my kids said, oh my gosh, this feels so good. And, they wish that their school was like that. And I had to encourage them. I said, well, see the difference, that I know we're all doing the best that we can, but you feel the difference in a LEED v5 building. So we're just excited to be able to bring this to market. Again, LEED v5 is for the market, by the market. And so this next slide here, I'd like to call this kind of like your choose your own adventure. And so, they have some QR codes here. So I welcome anyone to feel free to scan and kind of learn more. The first stop, obviously, is our main page, where you can see case studies of LEED v5 projects all across the world that hopefully can provide inspiration and some just insights into some really, really exciting projects already. Of course, here, if you have a project or if you're interested in registering, you can register a project. And then you can also find out more about LEED v5, as well as to our last QR code, which is education courses. And it's a whole catalog full of courses. So we're pretty excited about everyone being able to take their LEED v5 journey and seeing what that project looks like. We'd like to learn more about your project. So we welcome everyone to join our LEED v5 movement. And thank you. Thank you so much. And I just want to thank Aaron as well for all that he does in this space and his dedication. And I'm looking forward to learning from many of the other presenters as well.
All right. So, wait, where to start? I was making copious notes as you were talking. Well,
Yeah.
first of all, the T. Rowe Price headquarters in Harbor East, downtown Baltimore, a fabulous building. I used to work at the Legg Mason Tower, otherwise known as the Franklin Templeton building. I was on the 23rd floor,
Okay.
the 24 floor building, but I was on the 23rd floor. And that's actually where our headquarters were when we were organizing for Baltimore Climate Tech 2024, our first year.
Wow.
And I had a great view right at the front of the building. and I had a great view of the T. Rowe Price building. I literally saw that building going up as it was being constructed in real time.
Wow.
And I was actually in that space during the Key Bridge collapse as well. So saw the Key Bridge every day, took it for granted. The next day I come in, it's gone. And you could see it right from that building. One thing I loved about that building is I have in my own mind deemed that as and this is the Legg Mason Tower I'm talking about,
Okay. Yeah.
100 International Drive. I've deemed that as the healthiest building, not only in Maryland, but probably in the healthiest building that I've ever visited.
Okay.
It's LEED Silver. It's got an Energy Star score of 95. It's got, it's well certified, well health and
Hmm.
safety certified. It's got BOMA 360.
Oh,
And, I take my air quality monitors with me
yeah.
everywhere, right? And even on Sundays when the HVAC system was turned off just for energy conservation, I was measuring carbon dioxide levels below 500 parts per million, which is for a building that's not pumping in fresh air, absolutely
Wow.
amazing. Um, so I wanted to share that just in
Yeah.
regards to that building and what's
Yeah.
happening in Harbor East. But you mentioned something, because that area was known as a brownfield and it was vacant for
Yeah.
so many years. And
That's
I
right.
I had not heard that T. Rowe Price kind of built in some sort of a regeneration restoration to help
Yep.
resolve that. Can you unpack that a little bit more and talk about some of the things that were done?
Absolutely. Yes. So that it was definitely a brownfield and they did lots of mitigation. I think there was lots of a chrome manufacturing place at the time. And when we know better, we do better, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And so it was an ideal space, to your point, to really revitalize that area. And they've done an amazing job to mitigate that brownfield
Hmm.
and be able to build something that is even better, that is more restorative, and that return the land in better condition. And so when you think about a building being close to nature,
Hmm.
they've done the work. So that's
Hmm.
just probably one example of many in Baltimore overall, and even Maryland. Every single year, we have what we call the lead top 10 states, and Maryland's always in top 10. And then downtown Baltimore, I mean, honestly, it's really truly remarkable when you think about like the bottom floors, for instance, having it be like mixed use space and space to be together and for community to gather.
Hmm.
The variety of like meeting spaces and light where it's built to have the sun and which is ideal as far as where it faces
Hmm.
and things. And that is probably a very shining example of when you think about restorative construction.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
have you done a site visit of the T. Rowe Price
Not
exhibition?
yet. We're working
So
on that.
so when you do, you have my email, you have
Okay.
my cell phone number. Please,
Okay.
I would love to join
Oh,
you.
it's got to happen. Yeah. We're working on that. We're working on it, by the way. Yeah.
I've walked around it. I've actually, yeah, created a digital twin of the entire Harbor East, the entire Baltimore City Inner Harbor, and
Um,
just saw that as it was going up. So I'd love to be able to see the inside.
oh,
But
absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I'll count on you for getting me
Okay. You
there.
know what though? From our mouth to God's ears, it's going to
Okay,
happen.
okay,
It's
okay.
going to happen. I'll mention your name, right? And I
I,
know I'll get in.
oh yeah, right. Okay.
Oh yeah.
So let's talk about the lead scorecard. I think one of the great things I love about the lead scorecard is you could literally Google a property like if you know it has a lead certification, you could
Hmm.
Google the property address followed by lead scorecard, and it pulls up
Absolutely.
the scorecard of the particular property. And I was I have to be perfectly honest with you, and I'm always honest with you when we have these conversations that
Yeah.
up until lead version 5, I was disappointed because I would always go to, I think it's section 16, I'm not really sure, but it's the section that showed what the building owners did or the developers did on the indoor air quality
Okay.
portion of it.
Hmm.
And a lot of those boxes were not checked in regards to what could be done.
Sure.
But I think that's the blessing of lead version 5 is it's now not based on design, it's based on actual performance.
Absolutely.
And if you want to get your 10 indoor air quality points, there's certain things you got to do. One of
Hmm.
them being you have to use a reset accredited indoor air quality monitor, right? So that's great. My question is there a lead scorecard for lead residential?
So yes, so there is a lead scorecard for residential, and we have in our lead scorecard there are different categories. So there's like lead, for data centers and warehouse. There's residential, um, and I'd be happy to. to share that with links, what have you, for your viewers. But yeah, there is, because we understand, when people think about LEED, they don't often think about residential.
Hmm.
And if they do, they'll think about multi-family,
Hmm.
which is
Hmm.
fine.
Hmm.
But there is a LEED version for homes, for single family homes.
Got
And we
it.
look to do more in residential, by the
So
way.
is that a lead version 5 for homes or just a lead version for homes? It's not
So
version.
I'm going to say right now, we just came out of LEED v4.1.
Yeah.
And for LEED v5, I want to say it's comprehensive. Let me get back to you on that.
Okay, okay,
But
no
that is
problem.
a very good question. It's a very good question.
And the lead scorecard for residential, is that Googleable like it is for
Yes,
commercial?
yes, it
Oh
is.
boy.
Yes, it is.
Interesting.
But beyond Googleable, I can get that to you though.
Well, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I've been as you know, I've been a real estate practitioner for
Yeah.
25 years, 26 years now. Wow. And when if I'm working with a buyer and they are determined that they want a healthy, smart, high performance home,
Hmm.
um, I can go into the MLS system. I think I can click lead and those types of things, Indoor Air Plus, Energy Star,
Hmm.
and a few other, environmental certifications. But rarely does anything come up, right? These
Sure.
are there's not a database where one, well, I guess the USGBC has the only database where when a consumer wouldn't naturally go to
Yeah,
USGBC to search for a database of LEED certified homes. So I think that's where the real estate community needs to kind of get on board as well to be able to appropriately populate
absolutely.
the MLS system so that when buyers are looking for these types of properties, that they easily come up because they're not easily searchable now.
I totally appreciate that. And that is not lost on us. We're always seeking to do more and work with more folks who really should be part of that conversation and that engagement. And so I definitely, look forward to maybe continuing this conversation. I think it's super important and it's not lost on us at all, because number one, more people will know about LEED, but also have access to what LEED is. Because we believe that again, being people centric, real estate deals, homes, et cetera, people is their spaces and places. And so I think that's important. So let's work on that. Let's work
Yeah,
on that. Yeah.
absolutely. I'm committed to doing that. I can definitely link you up with some folks at the Maryland
Okay.
Association of Realtors, headquarters in Annapolis, and maybe,
Hmm.
our MLS system, Bright MLS, which is the largest in the country. Because, if I want to search for a lead building in
Yeah.
CoStar,
Hmm.
the database that commercial brokers use, I can easily find a lead building that way. But for
Sure.
residential, I think there's definitely a pathway and an
Absolutely.
opportunity there for sure.
I think so. I think that this is one of the beauties about um, kind of one of our tenants, and that's really getting out on the ground and talking to people like yourself, Aaron, to feel and to understand what the market needs. In this case, residential real estate, that's important. It's important. And I'm looking forward to, like I said, talking and working more on that. Yeah.
Absolutely,
Thank
absolutely.
you.
So, I guess I'm so focused on lead residential because I think this might be the
Yeah.
first year that we've actually got a chance to kind of unpack that a little bit,
Hmm.
which I think is great. Now I know lead for commercial has a reset crosswalk, right? And I know that lead residential, you mentioned indoor air quality and those types of things. Is there a indoor air quality monitoring? Like, does it need to be validated or is it just like how are you familiar with?
So, I would say for residential, be the same thing. When it comes to construction, whether multifamily or single family, that third party verification is really what makes lead be lead.
Yeah,
So yes, now the exact components and the technical aspects. I mean, I had to go and refer to my manual and all those pieces, but yeah, absolutely. And I think that is one of the hallmarks about lead, just building that confidence, for the market. Every
absolutely.
person, every stakeholder in the market, that third party verification. So yes.
Absolutely. You
Hmm.
talked about sick building syndrome. I mean, it's definitely a thing.
Hmm.
It started in the 1970s. It was not a phenomenon prior to 1970s when we started making our, because of the energy crisis, we
Hmm.
started making our buildings more energy efficient, making them
Hmm.
tighter, and they didn't breathe. And so that was actually how sick building syndrome started. And one of the fears that I have about Maryland has the most aggressive climate law in the country. The Maryland Climate Solutions
Hmm.
Now Act, otherwise known as our Building Energy Performance Standard. All of our buildings,
Oh yeah.
35,000 square feet or more, need to be net zero by 2040. I don't know about you, but well, I know you've probably have
Yeah.
interacted with more building owners, but It's very rare to bump into a building owner or a corporate tenant that even knows that the law exists.
Oh my goodness. I cannot tell you the BEPS, 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 BEPS.
And this
Yeah.
this is why we originally started Baltimore Climate Tech in 2024 was to talk about this new law that was coming to Maryland that I didn't feel as though
Yeah.
many folks knew about. We wanted to hear from experts like yourself from across the country,
Yeah.
figuring out what that was about. But my biggest fear is that we're kind of circling back on making buildings tighter. You know, we're thinking that just because we remove combustion from a building and make it all electric, that automatically brings indoor air quality, healthy indoor air quality along for the ride, and it doesn't. I'm sad to
Right.
say, I measure air quality in every building that I go into, as I mentioned before, net zero buildings, certified buildings,
Sure.
and they're not performing as
Mhm.
designed, and that's what I love about LEED version 5 is it's really pushing the market, pushing the industry to actually focus on performance.
Oh my gosh. And so we want to measure that performance, and we talk about BEPS, I like to say until all have heard, there's so many different entities, whether it's counties, whether it's like portfolio owners, those who are responsible for telling the story, right? And so it's all over the place, quite frankly. And so I think that's one of the things about not only this conference, but in the work that I do is to ensure that everyone is has access to the information, and of course, lead as a framework will help you get to that BEP standpoint. But I talk with building owners all the time who, one, may not totally appreciate or maybe fully understand, because it's very confusing. You have some high performing counties and some counties that are, not at that point who are doing great things, but just not maybe up to speed with BEPS. And you have some smaller uh, portfolio owners in Maryland who have lots of buildings, maybe a couple of gleaming examples of sustainability and other maybe less performing buildings. And so we have, of course, LEED, but we also have a solution called Perform, and it looks at the entire portfolio's health. And so we have an online portal. Basically, you can put all your data in there. You set your own benchmarks, and at scale, you're lifting up all the buildings in your portfolio. We know that all buildings may not be LEED. We wish they be LEED, but we understand that they still have to perform and save money. If you're doing reporting, you're looking at additional financing, and that we want to bring that portfolio up. We want to bring it up at scale. And so products like Perform, we also have True Zero Waste that looks at the total life cycle of your materials and your practices, even with like waste reduction, we look up beyond recycling, right? And look up, looking at the carbon footprint of your materials, how healthy they are, looking at your materials and all of that. So it is really kind of a multifaceted approach. And then to your point about buildings that are designed at the highest levels, if they're not maintained, I mean, it's just like if you buy a home and you don't change the
Right,
where
right.
you're gonna go, you're gonna have some air that's not that healthy, you know?
Oh,
And so yeah,
go ahead,
you
go
know,
ahead.
if you're gonna paint that room,
Yeah.
you're gonna not change the air filters, you're going to hire someone who may not fully understand that looks like everything down even to like your maintenance crew using products. I think about it in the case of folks who are going to be looking for a space in a building.
Mm,
So
hmm
a tenant,
hmm
if that building is not LEED, if they don't really appreciate fully the importance of having tenants who are also LEED, oftentimes they share janitorial staff.
hmm
When it comes to like your sorting and your recycling, we know that recycling and composting can look 1,000 different ways. You're in DC somewhere, you're in one office building, well, across the street, they're doing it differently.
Right,
Maybe the
right.
city's doing it one way.
hmm
And so what having a framework does is
hmm
ensure consistency
hmm
across your portfolio. So
hmm
now we're talking apples and apples, right? And so ensuring that the maintenance staff understands, making sure that if you're choosing a third party, let's say a haulaway, the sorting and also the education of the occupants,
hmm
having wayfinding signs and things like that and photos and pictures. So this way it's easy to do. It has to be doable,
Yeah.
right? but it becomes as doable as people are familiar and educated with it. I know, I was in fifth grade and I learned about recycling. Came home, kids will teach adults things, right? But then it seems like somewhere along the line we kind of just stopped doing the things, and then it became
Lazy. Yeah.
difficult. You think, is
Hmm.
it composting? Is it recycling? What does it
Hmm.
all mean? Is it,
Hmm.
reusing things? And so again, creating a framework that is doable,
Hmm.
that is consistent. And now we're making progress. Now we have some traction. So that's what using, you know, um, lead and true zero waste or even our perform. We know that building operators and owners have buildings everywhere. Sometimes they crossing counties, states, even countries. This is now, again, which brings us to the forefront, having a consistent framework. Now we can begin to track and measure and save. It's like you don't manage what you don't measure.
Right, right. So let me ask, I love that. Peter Drucker statement. I love it.
Yeah.
So and we use that with air quality like all day, every day, beat that
Yeah.
in the ground. And because what we measure from an indoor air quality perspective, you can't see it, you can't smell it, you can't taste it. But it'll do some it
I don't
sometimes
know,
depending on what
Aaron.
it
I've been in
is.
some spaces where the air is funky now, and I can taste that funk. I'm just gonna
By the
say,
time you smell it, it's already done its damage. I could
oh,
assure you
okay.
that. But so I've got an interesting question. You brought up tenants in buildings, and then a lot of them do have corporate mandates that they be in buildings that are high
Hmm.
performing, right? And I think that the corporate tenants are generally sometimes driving. Because they have these corporate sustainability mandates
Hmm.
driving the building owners to conform. Maryland, of course, is requiring the building owner to conform, but then there's the split incentive issue that needs to be worked
Hmm.
out, right? But so I know Energy Star has a Energy Star tenant space certification, meaning if I'm a tenant and I've got a whole floor plate, let's say 25,000 square feet in a building, the building's not Energy Star certified, but I can make my floor plate Energy Star
Absolutely.
certified, right? Does LEED have something similar where I might not be in a LEED building, but I want to
Uh-huh.
make my office, I want to get a LEED certification in my office.
Absolutely. So, for instance, in our headquarters, we have a triple certificated certified space. So we are well, true, and lead. Now, our building owners happen to also be a lead building, but in the case where there are tenants who are thinking about doing a build out in a building that
Hmm.
is not lead certified,
Hmm.
um, I'm not going to say I wouldn't recommend that. I mean, I'm not going to recommend what, wise stewards of their own brand, their company
Hmm.
should do,
Hmm.
but it makes it easier and makes it more having that sustainability be accessible, you know, because it's about relationship. I mean, now I see even when it comes to building owners and having them be to attract tenants, it's in my observation that they will become sustainable to attract tenants. So it is definitely something to invite tenants in, almost from a kind of a hospitality standpoint. People are wanting to do more to attract those long-term leases. We know that, for instance, in DC or any other metropolitan city, for instance, where after the pandemic, people were going hybrid, and we
Hmm.
saw, the loss of community vitality and
Hmm.
what have you. And people are wanting to invite people back in and give them an
Hmm.
incentive to come back into the office. And so they're doing things like um, redoing the space for a variety of uses. So not
Hmm.
only indoor air quality, but neurodivergent, trauma-based, and other types of considerations to really attract those long-term leases. Um, and so if a company would like to be in a space that is non-certified, I'm going to say it might be kind of an uphill challenge,
Hmm.
you know, but that in that negotiation, in that
Hmm.
conversation, that engagement, that's something they address because they're going to have to. Otherwise, they're going to probably be frustrated, you know, because that, like I said, cleanup staff, things like the hallway
Hmm.
and other areas where they're sharing space, whether it's a gym
Hmm.
or a lobby, all those amenities that are not used only by that company's occupants, by
Hmm.
their employees. And so, yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
I
if
would question that. I would wonder why, and I would probably encourage them, you know, um, to see what else is out there.
yeah,
But other people make decisions for a variety of reasons of their own.
the last thing we need are more stranded assets, and if it's a building that's 35,000 square feet or more that needs to comply anyways, you know what I mean? But I think as we close out, I think maybe one of the best examples that I've seen of someone who's just was had the forethought to approach this was in the world's most popular building. He's the owner of the world's most popular building. Everybody knows this building. Do you know the most popular building in the
Tell
world?
me, I'm struggling here.
The Empire State Building.
Okay, okay, yes.
Anthony Malkin. If anyone has not studied it, the story of what they did in 2009 with the retrofit of that building, 2.8 million square feet, built in 19
Okay,
1929, something like that. Um, they built that building in a year and 4 months, the Empire State Building.
I did
And
not know
in
that.
2009, they Anthony Malkin underwent a deep energy retrofit of that building. LinkedIn was one of their tenants of, I think they had about 3,500 square feet. They now have close to 6 million or
Wow.
600,000 square feet
Hmm.
in that building. But it just goes to really understanding, you know, the tenant overcoming the split incentive barrier
Hmm.
and understanding that, if in a good market, we get the premium
Yeah.
in rent, and in a bad market, we keep the tenant because this building never
Amen.
did not close during COVID, right? And I think they've got really great occupancy now. If you've never taken the Empire State Building
I have
tour,
not.
I strongly
Okay.
encourage it. But a fabulous, fabulous story about, I think Maryland and the nation and the world can take a lesson from what Anthony Malkin did at the Empire State Building retrofit. And they've actually created a playbook on exactly how they did what they did.
That
So
is phenomenal. That is
absolutely.
phenomenal. We're
Um,
going to be in buildings for as long as we exist, and buildings, like I said, can be part of the solution to help us do the things that we really enjoy and the things
yeah.
that we really love to do and to
Mhm.
keep our most precious folks safe and healthy, and so buildings through all its parts, through operations and maintenance and career pathways. I have just found a love in the built environment. And I
Mhm.
invite, the viewers to read more, to see kind of where they fit
Mhm.
in the built environment. Believe it or not, we all do fit in somewhere in the built environment. And LEED and our other frameworks are really smart, healthy. Green kind of gets uh, the backlash of being niche
Yeah.
or something, that's optional. And it's really
Mhm.
not.
Mhm.
It's really smart
Mhm.
and efficient,
Mhm. And it can get politicized
pathways.
as well, unnecessarily
It
politicized
can
as well. And,
totally.
we haven't heard the word ESG in the last 2 or 3 years. So, but you
Yeah.
know what? I appreciate your present. I always appreciate your presentation. I appreciate you showing up because you hit our four pillars. Our four pillars for this year are, addressing radon and indoor air quality, asthma, which is a big thing. Baltimore City having the highest rate of asthma-related fatalities in the nation. 1 in 4 homes in Maryland having radon levels above the EPA action level. You talked about high energy, managing energy. The if you have a LEED certified home, your energy bill is
Yeah.
20 to 30% lower than your neighbors who's not, certified. And with Maryland having the highest energy costs in the nation and a median of $6,500 annually is what we're spending on energy. Do you live in Maryland? Or you
I
live in Maryland?
do. I
Okay,
do.
so
I
you've seen
do.
your energy
Oh,
bill.
I see it and I feel it. So yeah. Yeah.
So the highest in the nation, and then lastly, building for climate resilience, addressing the sea level rise issue on the Eastern Shore with their,
Absolutely.
water intrusion and land subsidence is a big issue. So your presentation, I think, checked all those boxes today. I can't thank you enough for your
Oh,
time and your professionalism and your subject matter expertise. And thanks for coming
thank
back
you,
for a third
Gary.
year.
And thank you for all that you do. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, Sade, it's been great. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you want people to know, or?
Nope. I'm
All
good to
right,
go.
Sade.
Thank you for
Thank you
being
so
on.
much. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Yep.
you. Have a good one.
Bye.